Hi, it's Vex, and today we want to talk about the top 10 cards from Dominaria United. That's right, top 10 cards, but of course, there's always honorable mentions, and I love this. For the first time, we have a basic land cycle that we could use as proxies for the original dual lands. As you see in my Magic 30 video, you could use these ETB tap lands and cross out the ETB tap part and use them as proxies for the original dual land. Like this could be a taiga, a mountain forest, or it could be, wooded ridgeline where ETB's tapped. That's kind of cool that we have lands with basic land types that enter the battlefield tapped. These are strictly worse than the original dual lands, but there's something that you can fetch out. Very good on budget. Very good with fetch lands. Very good with the green ones. Very good with wood elves, which can get you a forest card. The plains can be very good with the deep gnome, Terramancer type cards, which can get plains, such like that. So that is our honorable mention. I don't really include these in a lot of decks because shock lands are better than these lands, but very, very good budget lands. Very good cards to use as proxies. Let's move on to the real top 10. All right, we have our dice here. Number 10. Let's see what we got here. We have Relic of Legends, a nice uncommon, the most expensive uncommon from this set. The reason it's number 10, and even on this list, it's a 3-mana rock, which people say, oh my god, avoid those things like the plague. 3-mana rock's horrible. But this is a good 3-mana rock because it can generate, 1 mana of any color right there. Or tap an untapped legend creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. So I have a deck here with me. Let's see. I have our Commander Lonus for funds. You could play this, tap it, and then you could tap this to the Relic of Legends ability to add another mana of any color. Even though it's summoning sick, you still can tap it because the ability is on Relic of Legends, not the creature. So you can tap a bunch of creatures. This can make tons of mana. Every creature is legendary nowadays, so they're essentially non-summoning sick mana rocks with Relic of Legends. All right, number 9, Leyline Binding. Yes, this is very good modern Pioneer 5-color decks with the Triomes and such, but you know what has Triomes? EDH decks have Triomes. This is good in a 4-color deck, 5-color deck. So this is good in Legends Matters deck, or deck with a lot of legends in it. This is good for a 5-color deck. It is a 5-mana white enchantment flash domain. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each basic land type among lands you control, so it can just cast. If you have all 5 land types, it's just 1 white, and it's flash. When ETBs, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. So this is an instant speed O-ring, Oblivion Ring, that costs 1 white in a 5-color deck with, you have all 5 basic land types. I love this because it's kind of like almost Swords to Plowshares level. You can get rid of any permanent except for lands. You got a heuristic study, nope, Leyline Binding it. You have Blightsteel Colossus, which is indestructible, Leyline Binding it. Stuff like that. So I think this is really good in multicolor decks. Okay. Number 8. Micromancer. That's right. I love the name Micromancer. 3 in a blue. Creature, human, wizard. Whenever it ETBs, you may search your library for an instant sorcery card with mana value 1. Reveal it and put it in your hand. So it has to have mana value 1 and has to be an instant sorcery. I love this because this is kind of like another spell seeker. You can get your Swan Song. You can get your Brainstorm. You can get a various cool or Pongify. I'm just naming blue cards, but if you're playing white, you get Swords of Plowshares because it doesn't say blue. It just says insert sorcery. So you get a lot of cool things like Faithless Looting, Entomb, Reanimate, all this cool stuff with this card. It's not as good as Spellseeker because Spellseeker costs 1 less and get you a mana value of up to 2. But I think this is really, really good card, and it comes in at uncommon too, so much cheaper than Spellseeker. Moving on, number 7, and I definitely have this in my Orvar deck to get Whim of Valrath right there, so I can combo off, and then Whim of Valrath and Orvar can copy this and get more things like Swan Song Protection, all the other cool cards like Clock Spinning or whatever. Enough of that. Number 7, Temporary Lockdown. Let's read this. Speaking about Oblivion Rings, 1 white enchantment. When ETBs, exile each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less until temporary lockdown leaves the battlefield. That is right. If your opponent is playing a treasure deck, boom, play temporary lockdown, treasure's gone. Unfortunately, if they have Dockside Extortion on the table, Dockside's gone. So when this is gone, Dockside comes back. But besides the point, this is kind of like Culling Ritual, except for it's in white, and it just exiles things temporarily until this leaves the battlefield. It exiles mana rocks, exiles treasures, which is the fun things. Or or force you to sack treasures. You wouldn't really let them be exiled. You just sack the treasures if they're untapped. So I think temporary lockdown is really good. Getting rid of mana rocks makes you play an honest game. And did I mention also gets rid of like these little pesky tokens. So temporary lockdown, excellent card. Number 6, one of my favorite cards of this set, Silverback Elder, because it's green, of course. It's 2 triple green, so harder to cast in higher colored decks. That's why I have triple green in it. Creature, Ape Shaman. Whenever you cast a creature spell, choose one. So on cast, destroy target artifact or enchantment, which is really good because you can keep doing it over again as long as you cast creatures. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, so you can just ramp yourself. So it's ramp, artifact destruction, or you gain 4 life just in case you're low in life. I've never used that option. I always deal with the ramp or destroy options. I love destroying Soul Rings with Silverback Elder. It's the funnest thing to do. Soul Ring, if you don't have anything else to do, you just ramp. So it's a ramp card. It's interaction. If you have a life gain deck, it's life gain. So it does all the cool stuff. Number 5. One of the most cards, well, not most cards, one of the cards that people are very bitter seeing on the other side of the table, Shieldred the Apocalypse. Now, there's 2 things people love doing in Commander is ramping and drawing cards, especially drawing cards. And if you could penalize them for drawing cards, it feels good. So there's Nekazar that does 1 damage. Who needs that? Actually, you can also have Shieldred in your Nekazar deck. You can do 3 damage anytime an opponent draws a card, right? Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. So Shieldred's 2 black, legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor. When you draw a card, you gain 2 life. So if you're drawing 10 cards, you gain 20 life, which is super good. Shieldred also has Death Touch, can protect herself really well. All right, on to number 4. Number 4 is a Defiler cycle. Now, some people might have this number 1, but number 4 for me, let's read Defiler of Faith. It's got, wherever its casting cost is, usually 2 or 4 or 5 mana value right there. They're Phyrexian Human, Sphinx, Horror, Kavu, and Worm. And then they all have the texts. Whenever an additional cost to cast a white permanent, so it has to be permanent, can't be like Swords of Plowshares. You may pay 2 life. Those spells cost white less to cast if you pay life this way. This mana only reduces the amount of white mana you pay. So essentially it gives you a single Phyrexian mana for any white permanent card that has a white pip in it. And then whenever you cast a white permanent spell, create a soldier. So it gives you, allows your 1 white pip to be Phyrexian mana and gives you an effect when it happens. The blue one is draw a card. That's neat. Black one is target creature you control gets +1/+1 against mana until end turn. Black one's horrible. The red one is deals 1 damage to any target, so you can ping things. It's cool. But the green one is pretty busto right there. When you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. My God, think about this. Yeah, the black one gives you 1/+1/+1. This one gives you permanent +1/+1 across the board and even on itself. And it's a 6/6 trample for 5. So rate is insane. Getting mana discount. Remember I said people love mana, card draw and mana ramp. This is kind of like a mana ramp creature that gives you a benefit for casting spells as well. On to number 3. Let's put these over here. There, pile's getting bigger now. Number 3, we have Tear Asunder. I love this card. It's an uncommon, which makes me like it even more. So it can replace Assassin's Trophy. It's very flexible. Let's see what it does. 1 green, instant. Kicker, 1 black, so it's Golgari. Color identity, exile target artifact or enchantment. Remember, exile. If spell's kicked, exile target non-land permanent instead. So it's an instant. So you exile somebody's Blightsteel Colossus, as we mentioned, with the artifact mode, of course. Or you can exile Eldritch Norn or a creature if you kick it. Assassin's Trophy does cost 2, but they get a land. Here, I like the modalness of it. If you pay, 2 black green, 4 mana value, it's kind of like an other end in Golgari colors, but it gives you the flexibility of being cheaper if you exile an artifact or enchantments, which I love. It takes a card other end and just makes it like, this makes it infinitely better than other end in every way. Number two card, Karn's Silex. Now, you're like, why is this number 2 card? Well, let's read it. 3 generic legendary artifact. Karn's Silex ETBs tapped. Players can't pay life to cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So this undoes the little Phyrexian-ness right there. However, read this. X tap, exile Karn's Silex, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less. Activate only as a sorcery. So, this might seem really innocent. But in the world of higher power commander, where people love the fetch lands, the prismatic vistas, boom, Karn's Silex ETBs shuts all that off. And even in a world where we don't have a lot of fetch lands and such, that where you have to pay life, you have Bolus the Citadel and a lot of black cards like Hatred. You pay life, you can't really do that anymore. Right there, Karn's Silex shuts it off. And not only that, when you untap with it, you have essentially a Never Needles Dis, or Pernicious Deed, I should say, that can get rid of Planeswalkers that you can activate, of course, as a sorcery. But the threat of activation just lets you play a game that's much different than your opponent's game, because you have control. If they play tokens deck, well, good luck surviving that. You can also play this in a big Eldrazi deck where X is 8. You have your Kozilek with just 10, won't get exiled. You just exile everybody else, ruin their day, and just attack. The reason I have it so high is I've seen a lot of fetch lands lately in my meta, and just being able to shut down fetch lands, I don't recommend playing this with fetch lands. Of course, you don't want to shut your own fetch lands down. This is a symmetrical effect, but a lot of people rely on fetch lands for color fixing. They get super greedy. They have 5 mana, 5 color decks with a bunch of fetch shock lands, triomes, and I've seen people nowadays getting greedier and greedier with their mana bases and using fetch lands as a crutch. So any way I could think you could turn it off is a good thing for the game. And also having tacked on removal is insane too. All right, number 1 card of Dominaria United. Right, this is my number 1 card. Might be a little controversial, but Vesuvan Duplimancy. Now, why is it number 1 card? Okay, if you see my deck tech or played against a dragon called Miriam, you would know how busted doubling things are. This is like a doubling season, right? A double token. Let's see, parallel lives, that's the word. 3 in a blue, enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that artifact or creature, except it's not legendary. So, this is, again, I mentioned Miriam. Miriam is a 6-mana dragon. I don't have it on me, but hopefully you have not had the luxury of playing against Miriam where you get wrecked by that dragon constantly because it's making non-legendary tokens of things. Spells can be used, let's say, over and over again, repeatedly. Whim of Valrath, so this is definitely in my Orvar deck. As you know, these two right here are my Orvar deck. Once you target something, make a copy. Let's see, make a copy. Boom. Let's clear this all out. Let's have this Vesuvan Duplimancy on the board. You cast an instant sorcery spell, wherever it is. You cast it on Silverback Outer. You make a copy. So it turns all your spells into instant speed clones, which is insane. And if you have buyback spells, stuff like that, you get just tons of clone, tons of value. When you see that copying, it's very powerful. It's like you get to draw the card, right, as copy this, and then you get the mana to actually cast it. And you get to do it over and over again because this stays on the board. So that's why this is my number 1 card. It might not look like the most powerful card because you play it, it doesn't ETB, it doesn't do anything, but once you have it around, you start making copies of things. If you have Liquid Metal Torque, you could turn this into an artifact, and because it says only artifact or creature you control, you can turn this into an artifact and then start copying it, and then shenanigans will happen. Once you now have 2 Vesuvan Duplimancies, and if you have Liquid Metal Torque already, you can keep copying them and make more and more things. So anyways, that's my top 10. Tell me your top 10 and put them in the comments. Tell me your favorite card from this set. This is the most powerful card, I believe. It's not my favorite. I love Micromancer. And then I just love this card, Silverback Elder. I love the things that make you play creatures. I like having the restricted mana cost, and the gain for life is cool too. And the repeatable landfall or land grabbing ability and artifact destruction. My favorite card from set. Tell me what your favorite is. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, give the video a thumbs up, smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be alerted for new videos in the future. And as always, have a wonderful day.